Good morning. It's Jonathan Barratt with the morning debrief for Friday, February the 19th. Pretty strong night on the Dow last night, which was one of the major themes. Very positive manufacturing data, but we had a sort of negative employment data. But I think the market's really grabbing onto this recovery story. And as a result of that last night, so we saw the equity markets are higher, not only in America but also in Europe. And we also saw commodities, particularly gold and oil. Oil had a huge move last night, close nearly 1 to 2%. Gold also had a good night. 1100 was a low, or actually 1098, and we're back now at 1122. So quite positive there. Copper also quite positive as well. So I think we're seeing some momentum starting to build in terms of this recovery, and let's see if it's sustained. Anyway, let's have a look at some of the closes, and we'll move on from there. Okay, as we know, we like looking at the Bloomberg page. The Dow was up 83 points, and we're just on, it's closed up, so it's up 0.81%, 10,392. The S&P's up 7, the Nasdaq's up 15. That followed on to some pretty positive data also out of Europe, where the stock 50 was up 16. The FTSE was up 0.59%, up 0.92%. The DAX was up 0.57 and the CAC up 0.61. So quite positive on that front. And so I think the market's just building up the momentum. The local market closed up a whopping 141 points, 4,668, and that to me is a very, very positive night for it. And our expectations are that it should continue to trade onwards and upwards. Now, I guess the 4,700 is something we talked about in the last couple of things, and look, we're nearly there. So probably expect a little bit more on it from here. Okay, now let's have a quick swing at what's happening with the commodity sector, and we'll just move back onto this chart. And I think the main focal points we've got here, crude. Let's have a look at crude. Crude in itself, very strong, broke through this area here. We did have some data out last night, and it seemed to be that we've seen finally seen a little bit of draw. A little bit of draw at the moment, and that in itself, I think, is quite important. But the market really is saying, market really is starting to think, well, this recovery is underway, and that's why we've seen this move higher. So quite strong. US 80 was a bit of a target. Probably expect that momentum to continue, and probably expect 80 through to 81. So quite a strong move there indeed. Also, on the back of that, primary input markets, looking at copper. Copper had a strong move as well, and as you can see there, that chart, probably best to see that on the daily. We are long copper, as we know, and that trade's still looking quite good up through that area there. And as mentioned, I wouldn't expect to see it test onwards and higher from here as well. So quite long there and looking good. Looking at gold, gold had a very good night as well, and there you see it's still holding above that little trend line. And whilst it's there, as we've mentioned before, gold is our preferred position for us. Yes, we took profits the other day, last night in fact. We didn't get back in, but we're certainly going to look for another entry level, and we'll obviously tweet that out to people when we do get back in on that. Alrighty-ho, so gold's looking good. On to some of the softs. A bit of a mixed night there for corn. Still looking at a little sideways price action. Soybeans under a little bit more pressure as well, and I think that basically maybe a little bit too early. We did like that, but it's following that trend. If it takes out 930, we might take off some of the position. Wheat in itself obviously also down a little bit, so a little bit of nervousness there on those soft commodities. But I think as momentum starts to pick up, then things look okay. Interesting to note that the US dollar nexus between the two has actually broken, but if that dollar can trade up to 80.50, I don't think it will affect too much of the market. As we can see there, dollar index 80.51 takes out that 80.70, then dollar will firm. But you got to ask yourself, the dollar will firm, but gold still went up. So I think that nexus is being questioned quite a bit at the moment. Little Aussie battler. Also, we took some profits off the table there, and we're looking at it now. I think if it really, that's the daily. It's stuck in a range, so I think dips can be well supported. We took profits, but we're still long some. But I think if it takes out that 90.20, 90.30, we'll run with that as well. Of course, it could be they're ready for another leg onwards and upwards. and that's just the way the Aussie trades. So I wouldn't be surprised, sort of like if we would be in that trade sort of sometime tonight. But anyway, once again, we'll try and Twitter that out to people so they get a good idea. So that's the Aussie, and we've mentioned gold. Local market, just have a quick look at what's happening there, and that looks quite strong. Takes out this high here on the hourly chart, that's 4665, which I think it will. Then I think we do go higher, and as mentioned before in a few times, look, it does look quite strong, and I would anticipate prices for it to continue to trade onwards and upwards. Let's have a quick look at what's happening on the economic calendar front. Today, not a lot of data in Australia. I guess the most news there, let's see the inflation data, particularly out of the States. Consumer price index there, looking for a little bit higher number. And remember, the IMF said that they do like a little bit of inflation to help control economies. Perhaps they're right, who knows? But I think the market is looking for a little bit of an uptick. If we continue to see that, that should support the gold market because people do like that as some form of a hedge. So let's keep an eye on that. So overall, I think it's going to be a nice challenging night. Obviously, that inflation data could be quite interesting. Remember, we're going to look to try and get back into the Aussie, look to try and get back into gold. We're already long some of the grains and certainly also long copper. Oil, we're going to have another look at as well because I think we can follow that commodity theme for a little bit longer. That's about it from me today. Hope you all have a good day, and we'll talk to you later. Happy trading.